Good morning and happy Tuesday. I hope everybody had sweet dreams and is ready for another day today. I gotta admit, I peeked through. I looked at the pictures on the next few pages and I'm so sorry, but they're so good. So I'm really excited to hold those up nice and close to the screen to give you as much detail as possible. Let's get to it. So Harry Potter is in, I believe, Knockturn Alley it was called. And he just ran into a witch. So, Harry supposed he hadn't spoken clearly enough threw his mouth full of ashes back on the Weasleys' fire. Trying to stay calm, he wondered what to do.
"Not lost, are you, my dear?"
said a voice in his ear, making him jump. An aged witch stood in front of him, holding a tray of what looked horribly like whole human fingernails. She leered at him, showing mossy teeth. Harry backed away. I'm fine, thanks, he said. I'm just...
Harry! What do you think you're doing down there?
Harry's heart leapt. So did the witch. A load of fingernails cascaded down over her feet, and she cursed at the massive form of Hagrid, the Hogwarts gamekeeper, that came striding towards them with beetle-black eyes flashing over his great bristling beard. Hagrid, Harry croaked in relief. I was lost. Floo powder. Hagrid seized Harry by the scruff of his neck and pulled him away from the witch, knocking the tray right out of her hands. Her shrieks followed them all the way along the twisting alleyway and out to the bright sunlight. Harry saw a familiar, snow-white marble building in the distance. Gringotts Bank. Hagrid had steered him right into Diagon Alley. You're a mess, said Hagrid gruffly, brushing soot off of Harry so forcefully he nearly knocked him into a barrel of dragon dung outside the apothecary. Skulking around Knockturn Alley. I don't know, dodgy place, Harry. Don't want anyone to see you down there. I realized that, said Harry, ducking as Hagrid made over to brush him off again. I told you I was lost. What were you doing down there anyway?
I was looking for flesh-eating slug repellent, growled Hagrid. They're ruining the school cabbages. You're not on your own?
I'm staying with the Weasleys, but we got separated, Harry explained. I've got to go and find them. They set off together down the street.
How come you never wrote back to me?
Said Hagrid, as Harry jogged alongside him. He had to take 3 steps to every stride of Hagrid's enormous boots. Harry explained all about Dobby and the Dursleys.
Ruddy muggles, growled Hagrid. If I'd have known.
Harry! Over here! Harry looked up and saw Hermione Granger standing at the top of the white flight of steps to Gringotts. She ran down to meet them, her bushy brown hair flying behind her. Now that is a cool, detailed illustration. There's so much to see. What happened to your glasses? Hello, Hagrid. Oh, it's wonderful to see you two again. Are you coming into Gringotts, Harry? As soon as I've found the Weasleys, said Harry.
You won't have to wait for long, grinned Hagrid.
Harry and Hermione looked around, sprinting up the crowded street, where Ron, Fred, Percy, and Mr. Weasley. Harry, Mr. Weasley panted, we hoped you'd only gone 1 grade too far. He mopped his glistening bald patch. Molly's frantic. She's coming now. Where did you come out? Ron asked.
Knockturn Alley, said Hagrid grimly.
Brilliant, said Fred and George together. We've never been allowed in, said Ron enviously.
I should ruddy well think not, growled Hagrid.
Mrs. Weasley now came in, galloping into their view, her handbag swinging wildly in one hand, Ginny just clinging on to the other. Oh, Harry, my dear! than anywhere. Gasping for breath, she pulled a large clothes brush out of her bag and began sweeping the soot that Hagrid hadn't managed to beat away. Mr. Weasley took Harry's glasses, gave them a tap of his wand, and returned them, good as new. "Well, gotta be off," said Hagrid, who was having his hand wrung by Mrs. Weasley. "Knockturn Alley, if you hadn't found him, oh, Hagrid!" "See you at Hogwarts," and he strode away, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the whole packed street. Give you another close-up. "Guess who I saw at Borgin and Burke's?" Harry asked Ron and Hermione as they climbed the Gringotts steps. "Malfoy and his father." "Did Lucius Malfoy buy anything?" said Mr. Weasley sharply behind them. "No, he was selling." "So he's worried," said Mr. Weasley with grim satisfaction. "Oh, I'd love to get Lucius Malfoy for something." "You be careful, Arthur," said Mrs. Weasley sharply, as they were ushered into the bank by a bowing goblin at the door. "That family's trouble. Don't go biting off more than you can chew." "So you don't think I'm a match for Lucius Malfoy?" said Mr. Weasley indignantly, but he was distracted almost at once by the sight of Hermione's parents, who were standing nervously at the counter that ran all along the great marble hall, waiting for Hermione to introduce them. "But you're Muggles!" said Mr. Weasley delightedly. "We must have a drink. What's that you've got there? Ah, you're changing Muggle money. Molly, look!" He pointed excitedly at the 10-pound notes in Mr. Granger's hand. A pound note, it's like a dollar bill. But remember, they're in the UK. "Meet you back here," Ron said to Hermione as the Weasleys and Harry were led off to their underground vaults by another Gringotts goblin. The vaults were reached by means of small goblin-driven carts that sped along miniature train tracks through the bank's underground tunnels. Harry enjoyed the breakneck journey down to the Weasleys' vault, but felt dreadful, far worse than he had in Knockturn Alley, when it was opened. There was a very small pile of silver sickles inside, and just one gold galleon. Mrs. Weasley felt right into the corners before sweeping the whole lot of it into her bag. Harry felt even worse when they reached his vault. He tried to block the contents from view as he hastily shoveled handfuls of coins into a leather bag. Back outside the marble steps, they all separated. Percy muttered vaguely about needing a new quill. Fred and George had spotted their friend from Hogwarts, Lee Jordan. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny were going to a second-hand robe shop. Mr. Weasley was insisting on taking the Grangers off to the Leaky Cauldron for a drink. "We'll all meet at Flourish and Bolt's in an hour to buy your school books," said Mrs. Weasley, setting off with Ginny. "And not one step down Knockturn Alley," she shouted at the twins' retreating backs. Harry, Ron, and Hermione strolled off along the winding cobbled street. The bag of gold, silver, and bronze jangling cheerfully in Harry's pocket was clamoring to be spent. So he bought 3 large strawberry and peanut butter ice creams, which they slurped happily as they wandered up the alley, examining the fascinating shop windows. Ron gazed longingly at a full set of Chudley Cannon robes in the windows of Quality Quidditch Supplies, until Hermione dragged them off to buy ink and parchment next door. In Gamble and Jake's Wizarding Joke Shop, they met Fred, George, and Lee Jordan, who were stocking up on Dr. Filibuster's fabulous Wet Start No Heat fireworks. And in a tiny junk shop full of broken wands, wonky brass scales, and old cloaks covered in potion stains, that's where they found Percy, deeply immersed in a small and deeply boring book called Prefects Who Gained Power. A study of Hogwarts prefects and their later careers, Ron read out loud from the back cover. "That sounds fascinating." "Go away," Percy snapped. Of course, he's very ambitious, Percy. He's got it all planned out. He wants to be the Minister of Magic. Ron told Harry and Hermione in an undertone as they left Percy to it. An hour later, they headed for Flourish and Blotts. They were by no means the only ones making their way to the bookshop. As they approached it, they saw to their surprise a large crowd jostling outside the doors trying to get in. The reason for this was proclaimed by a large banner stretched across the upper windows. Gilderoy Lockhart will be signing his copies of his autobiography, Magical Me, today, 12:30 to 4:30 p.m. "Oh, we can actually meet him!" Hermione squealed. "I mean, he's written almost the whole book list." The crowd seemed to be made up mostly of witches around Mrs. Weasley's age. A harassed-looking wizard stood at the door, saying, "Calmly, please, ladies. Don't push there. Mind the books now." Harry, Ron, and Hermione squeezed inside. A long queue wound right around the back of the shop while Gilderoy Lockhart was signing his books. They each grabbed a copy of Break with a Banshee, and sneaked up to the line where the rest of the Weasleys were standing with Mr. and Mrs. Granger. That's where we're going to stop today because I'm already getting too tongue-tied, and seems like a good place. All right. Have a lovely day today, and I will see your faces. Well, I won't see your faces. You'll see my face tomorrow. Bye.